Hello, everyone. So, this is your host, Tsitsi Audrey. So, I've just arrived in the city of London. I'm right here at the Royal Holloway University, where I'm going to meet my guest, Dumi Senda, who is doing so well. He's doing amazing things for the community, and he's also the equality and diversity lead for the BBC. So, I cannot wait to meet him and hear his story. Come with me. Let's go and find him. Hello, everyone. Welcome to You Can Rise Again. So this is your host, Tsitsi Audrey, and I am here with Dumi Senda. I've been chasing him all day, and I couldn't find him, but I managed to find him now. Thank you so much for joining us, Dumi. Welcome to the show.
You're a bit of a detective, aren't you?
Yes. Thank you so much for accepting to be my guest.
Oh, accepting, it's an honor. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Wonderful. I'm
You
so
Can
happy.
Rise Again
Yes,
show. My
yes.
God. I think I can now say, Mom, I've made it.
Yeah. That's wonderful. So, well, we're just going to dive into it because, time is not on our side. I just wanted to ask you, who is Dumi Senda?
That's a very big question, isn't it? But I suppose it's also simple. I really think of myself as, on the one hand, as a global citizen.
Yeah.
I think, I'm just every day I'm learning from other people's cultures.
Yes.
So to give it a specific example, a few years ago, I was lucky enough to be invited, to Bosnia. Actually went, I was still studying then, went with a group of students. I was at Leeds Beckett University.
Yes.
And I was given an opportunity to speak at this international conference, peace conference in Bosnia. And before actually going, and I posted on Facebook and other social media platforms to say, I'm going to Bosnia. I was excited. And people said, oh, Dumi, you're going to be killed. There are no people like you there. People, I suppose, understandable concern. Yeah. But actually, my experience, I still went, and my experience of going there, these people treated me like a brother, and I spent. I would not be able to. I would not even walk 2 meters without someone stopping me and saying, oh, "Come, I want to buy a drink." I want to, it's just connecting as human beings. Yeah. So that global citizen, aspect is so important to me. But also I'm a Zimbabwean. Yes. Which is a very, very important thing to me. But actually, before I get to Zimbabwean, I would say African. Yeah. And then Zimbabwean. But also I'm in terms of, I suppose, work and all these things. I'm a diversity and inclusion specialist. I work with organizations. Being really lucky to work with some of the more non-global brands, the likes of the UN, Google, Goldman Sachs, LinkedIn, and such like. Yeah. But actually also kind of at community level, in a very local way. That's the work I'm really passionate about. Where maybe you're invited to speak with a group of young people, and I draw on my own journey and on my own story. And what I spend more time sharing, it's about my mistakes. Yeah. The mistakes I made along the way. I think those are more important than quote unquote successes, because people can really see the human journey. And then they can see that actually, if you can be there and you're so human, I too can actually, even excel and achieve it and do other things. Definitely. So that's really who I am. I know it's not one clear answer, but it's all these little pieces that come into a jigsaw puzzle, hopefully.
Okay, so just to go back a little bit, what was your childhood like? How did you grow up? What was your family structure like?
Fantastic. And so my childhood, I remember my childhood being a very happy space. I spent my formative years living with my grandparents in Berengo, a rural part of Zimbabwe. Yeah. I was basically raised by my grandmother, Mankomo, rest in peace, Gogo. And Kuluma Donora, which means great granddad. Gogo is grandma. Particularly my grandma, she had and still has a very special place in my heart. And I know I had a special place in her heart. In many ways, I might have been a favorite Mzukulu or Mzukuru as well. So a very happy childhood, but also with the, just to show you, life is not one-sided and it's multifaceted. I also had experiences which I share today. During my keynote address for the Britain Zimbabwe Society Book Festival at the Royal Holloway University, where we are right now, having our conversation. I shared about also growing up, from age 7 months old, I was separated from my mother, and I didn't meet her until I was 13 years old. So behind the smiles and the kind of carefree attitude, there were also moments of sadness, and at that time I used to grind my teeth a lot because for some reason I don't know where that came from, but I had this belief that it would make my mother think about me wherever she was. But when I look at that, someone might hear that and almost feel sorry for me. But actually, all these experiences shaped the person I've become. They shaped my, I suppose, my passion for equality, and in some sense have shaped my values and also, therefore, by extension, my career timeline. Also growing up, on my father's side, so I describe it as I was an outsider child in many ways. So I left in Berengwa is almost the favorite grandchild to becoming the outsider child in my father's house and then on my mother's side, because in my father's house, I lived with a stepmother who was not very kind, and it was not rare for me to go to bed without having eaten anything while others ate, but all those experiences have shaped my passion and commitment to equality. And so I say to other people, I wonder what experiences you've gone through that may have been challenging, but how have they contributed to the person you've become today? So I look back not with, in many ways I've learned to be grateful for the life I had and the people I had in my life, as opposed to bemoan the childhood I wish I had. So I think with the right awareness, with the right self-awareness particularly, we can always find something to be grateful for. So I have a lot to be grateful for. So I think my childhood is a very happy space with challenges, but still a place that has shaped who I've become today. Sometimes there's this mindset, particularly amongst African men, that I don't want my child to be raised by someone else. But that sometimes can be at the cost of that child, and but I can't judge my parents because I wasn't there. I'm not there to adjudicate who was right, who was wrong. But I can only say I've learned from my own experiences of what I experienced from that. So in many ways, I own my own story. Aside from their own story, they can own their own story, but I own my own story. But my story is also, intersects with them because of being my parents. But I like my story to be positive. It's not that it's not about glossing over those things that you can learn from. I think actually being intentional to learn from them is important. And because I'm a grown man, I've made my own mistakes too. Probably, and I'm gonna make more mistakes in future as a man and as a human being. And I want to learn from that. I want to hopefully learn from my parents, the mistakes of my parents, but also learn from my own mistakes, so that my children hopefully might also learn from me as well. So that's how I view it.
Okay. So what I want to touch on, which I think is an issue that affects a lot of people, is trauma.
What's that?
Trauma. Yes. How is that? When did you realize that some of the things that you're experiencing as an adult were due to your past experiences when you were young? Because I've realized that a lot of people suffer from this trauma, which was never addressed. But as you grow older, you start to realize that, oh my gosh, I've got these issues that I need to deal with, which stemmed from childhood.
Spot on, particularly I think from our culture, both Zimbabwean, perhaps African too. As I said, it's a culture where people don't talk about, are not always open about their own mistakes, about their experiences, and so that's on the one end. But actually, the broader human culture too, even from a perspective of the Western world. You know, we live in a world where on social media everyone is trying to present the best kind of, you know, version of themselves, and then, you know, which creates this narrative that, you know, life is all about, you know, always sitting on at the top of the wave, at the crest. But it doesn't work like that. A wave suddenly goes up and down. You know, otherwise it wouldn't be a wave. You know, so that's how life is. Well, but back to your question, you know, when did I realize that some of these, you know, aspects of my growing up might have had an impact on me? Well, actually, because I'm a very reflective person, but I'm also someone who's very lucky that I think in general my mindset is a very I don't want to use the word positive, but I like to look at situations and ask myself, you know, where is the silver lining on this cloud? You know, because I think everything is about perspective. So you can take the same situation that might have included an experience that was not as, I suppose, you know, helpful to you. But, you know, you can look at that and ask, what did that experience teach me? You know? So for me, I think that's also part of the healing in itself. You know, it's not about glossing over it, but it's about really going through it and asking, you know, what am I taking away from this? What is it teaching me? Not just teaching me in a doing way, but in a being way. You know, how do I want to be as a result of what I've learned? You know, so if, you know, a part of the story that I shared is in those young days, particularly living with you know, an unkind stepmother, I used to lock myself in the toilet with bits of paper in the pen and would scribble words, you know, that kind of created an alternative reality to my lived reality. But that's how I became a writer, and that's how I became a poet, you know. And that's how I suppose I grew this passion for equality and also for helping other people. And that's why I do the work that I do.
Yeah, just to touch on the passion for equality and diversity and all these things that you're doing right now. At what age did you feel like, you know, this is something that I want to focus on and actually study and actually become?
It's an interesting question, right? You know, many people ask me, so when did you start, you know, diversity? And I often answer that by saying, in many ways, I didn't start that. You know, I grew up around it. You know, when you look at our culture, Ubuntu, you know, as I said, I was very lucky to grow up to live with my grandparents in Berengwa and experience, you know, life in the rural areas of Zimbabwe, and that life is very collaborative. You know, so I grew up seeing things like Nimbe, where, you know, for instance, if you didn't have, if a family didn't have, you know, a head of cattle to work their fields, you know, the neighbors would chip in and help out, and younger people would be summoned to go and help out that go that sekuru, you know, who needs help and probably you know, is too old to work the fields themselves, right? So I grew up around that. But I suppose the question becomes, when did I begin to do that work in a professional sense? So I suppose that's
when did you start to take it seriously?
That's the evolution. Well, I mean, you know, I think even experiencing it in a community sense should still be taken seriously. But doing it in a professional sense is, now we're talking about career, you know, and that's an important question. And as I said, you know, me becoming a poet and writer was an evolution of some of my childhood experiences. But I began to advocate for other people, particularly when I came in the UK. Instead of, you know, sitting in probably one bedroom flat, you know, feeling sorry for myself, I took myself out there and I was using poetry, you know, to perform and highlight some of the issues that I was, you know, aware of, which were taking place in our community. You know, so for instance, actually, you know, if people check on YouTube and search for a video where I actually, you know, perform a song with my colleagues at Leeds Beckett University, and these are colleagues who are British and some are German, different cultures, and we sang a Shona song, but that speaks about equality for children, right? You know, so I suppose I became an activist. I got into that using poetry, using storytelling. I used to travel across the country with a little drum, telling stories to children, you know, but you know, being an activist, you know, I woke up, you know, so if you read one of my poetry collection called When the Soul Awakens. There's a poem there where I talk about the poem is titled Healer by Day, where I talk about, I suppose, where I was at the time as an activist. But here I was out there talking about empowering others in my poetry, but actually I would come back to my life unempowered. Struggling to pay rent, to keep a roof over my head. So I realized that it's important that I develop my career in a way that actually also enables me to live an empowered life, to have financial stability, to be able to look after my family, and all those things. So that led to the decision of me going back, to study, at the age of 33, studying with people who were probably 10 years younger than me, and working hard, realizing that I was coming along. We probably have to raise our voices because people, but hopefully our audiences are still fine. And going back to university and starting my academic journey. So I went to Lisbeth University, did a degree in international relations and peace studies as a path towards professionalizing. And then, I worked really hard. And then after that, won a couple of awards, graduated top of my department, got accepted to Oxford University, went up hard, and then I was already thinking about actually what do I want to do when I finish. And so I remember actually putting out a post on LinkedIn where I talked about I would like to work with organizations to help them to transform their workplace cultures so that they can work for all their people. And 3 organizations approached me, after I posted that post, and interested in working with me. And I actually chose to work with an organization called SEO London, Sponsors for Educational Opportunity London, which helps students from underrepresented backgrounds to break into the corporate sector, at elite firms, and so I did that work for 3 years. And the reason why I chose SEO London, despite SEO London was actually offering half the pay of the other 2 organizations, is because I recognized that this is where I needed to be to grow. So Richard Branson talks about, the true value of a job is not what you get out of it, but who you become while you're in it. So while doing that work, I became a globally noted, voice and specialist on diversity and inclusion. So that was my journey of professionalizing. So it's important, I suppose, to recognize the gaps where you are. Passion alone is not enough. Recognize actually the gaps in your skill set, and also recognize the need. For your skill set to be, I suppose, accepted into different spaces that you want to go into. What's the criteria? You have to take that seriously. Then plug those gaps and bring who you bring, your authentic self. I mean, you can see me wearing my jacket, and when I go to speak, I go with my African drum and use that as a podium often. That's not just for show. That's actually me bringing my full self and trying, attempting to be as authentic as I can be, and in the hope that can also actually give others a sense of hopefully freedom to be who they truly are in their own way, not in the way that Dumi defines. So I suppose that's my journey, and that's what I'm passionate about.
So you actually grew into it.
I grew into it.
I think it's passion.
Spot on.
Okay. What I wanted to touch on was on mental health, because you did mention something about you writing this book and you were writing poetry, and you are telling people out there, you're empowering people, but when you come back home, you're coming back to a not so empowering environment. Your mindset is actually not even there, but you're able to empower other people out there. What was going through your mind? Because I want to touch on mental health, because a lot of people are going through these things. When you see them out there, they are so happy, they're so they're encouraging other people, but when they come back to their own self at home, they are totally different people. And
I'll be honest, for me the issue then was not so much about my mindset or mental health, or it was more about actually the practicalities of, can I pay my bills? And actually often I would have used my very last dollar or pound in that case, to go to this event and speak at this event, where I've not been paid to go and perform poetry. So I've had to use money from my own pocket, from long shifts that I've done, and that money has been exhausted. And on the one hand, I'm passionate about investing into my passion and career, but I'm depleting my ability to then sustain my life, right? So that was the issue. But I think there are learnings that can be taken from that, so even when it comes to things like mental health and how one might put themselves out there, and maybe on the flip side of that coin, there's some pain, there's things that are not being dealt with or looked at. I think it's just one, it's a journey of awareness, you know, and coming to your own awareness. And you know, I cannot sit here and say to you, "Oh, flick that switch," you know, and everything will click, or you know, or even suggest that, "Oh, you're silly for approaching life that way." That would be so pretentious of you. It's just really recognizing that it's genuinely a journey, you know. And for someone, it might take them 2 years, 3 years, 4 years to come to that awakening. Someone else, it might be a conversation with someone else, and someone else, it might be actually watching this interview. And then they start looking themselves in the mirror in a different way and start asking some uncomfortable questions that they've not been asking. That might lead them to kind of beginning to recognize where they are, you know, and then seek that healing. And that healing might come in just adjusting, you know, the way we are going about life, you know, and actually saying, I'm going to preserve a bit of me and not put all of me out there on social media. I'm going to take time to go for walks in the park. I'm going to take time to look after me, you know. In a holistic way. It's okay to put things out there on social media. It's okay to perform a role, but actually am I living a life as well? You know, so I think it's a conversation that we all have to balance, myself included. You know, because you know sometimes I spend so much time on Zoom calls, on you know, and I just feel that you know I don't feel entirely well in this minute. What do I need to do to reset? You know, just going for that walk might be what you need to do, or just moving away from the little office to speak with the family in the lounge, you know, and just spend an hour with the family, you know, play with the kids downstairs. That actually sometimes can be that reset for that moment, you know. But then the bigger picture is how can I organize my life in a sense that in a way that will enable me to live my life in a way that is more nurturing of my well-being and mental health, as well as emotional well-being, right? Because that's linked to our mental well-being as well.
Okay. No, that's powerful stuff. Right. So I want to go from where you have been, because I remember I think you mentioned, I was reading some of your like your bio, and you were saying that you actually once worked in a factory. How did you come from there to now being the equality and diversity lead at the BBC?
Yeah, and you know, and it's you know, so Professor Diane, she's gonna tell me off for forgetting his surname. So she, you know, she was at the Pelagia, was Professor Diane's surname? Jita, right? You know, she actually gave me really great feedback when I mentioned this in the talk today. That you know, we ought to be careful, and she was giving this feedback to me, which I took on. You know, we ought to be careful even in how we characterize that story. Almost like putting a linear a line between, you know, that work, maybe whether it's in the factory or it's in nursing homes. And I've done all that. I've worked in learning disabilities, work that actually has also shaped who I've become, right? And making it seem as, you know, it's a hierarchy that, you know, you've come from here, now you're here, right? That's an unintended but dangerous narrative as well, because actually someone might actually aspire to do that work, you know, and we need that work anyway to be done in society, right? So you know, so that's also a learning for me in how I share that story, and so, but I also have to recognize that whatever it was, you know, I could have been a banker, I could have been a lawyer, I could have been. But I was not in a happy place because what I was doing was not aligned with my passion, was not aligned with my own sense of purpose. As you can see, I'm a very chatty person. You know, I love to talk to people. I love to, you know, to connect with people. So, you know, the work I was doing wasn't giving me that. You know, and so therefore there was a emptiness, you know, that was coming from that. And so I think that is that age of something wanting to be fulfilled that led me on this journey that now has led me to be working with organizations and now, you know, in a role like the BBC, leading BBC for England.
Well, that's all we've got for today. If you enjoyed today's episode, just hit the subscribe button and the notification bell for future content and future episodes. And you can also catch us on Facebook or Instagram at You Can Rise Again. Thank you so much for watching. And remember, you can rise again. Until the next time, bye.